I'm all charged up today. I'm warning you.
Welcome everyone to Nick and Tom's Intercontinental Adventure right
Are
here
you
on
recording me?
I'm presenting you. Does that count? Does that count?
Me?
Right here on the PW Torch Daily Cast and also, of course, on the Tom Colohue channels, where today I am joined by Nick Barbatti for a special mailbox edition of Nick and Tom's Intercontinental Adventure. I did work out a way that we wouldn't have the same technical issue as previous, and I just want to promise everyone that because it did go a little bit crazy last time. But we are live on both Twitch and YouTube, and of course we will be taking this show and putting it onto our PW Torch Daily Cast. You are, of course, joined by myself, Tom Colohue, and my colleague Nick Barbatti. How are you doing, Nick?
Well, I'm happy to be here, Tom. Listen, I feel like I just talked to you, but there's already a lot going on, a lot happening. Yeah. You got questions galore. You hear this? You hear the ruffling? That's me going through all the papers that I'm printing out for this show. So I'm happy to be here. It's a good time to spend time with you, Tom. I'm excited for the big Puerto Rico show this weekend.
It is going to be a pretty big one. I mean, WWE going kind of all out. I've got the card ready in case we do want to discuss that at some length. But this will be mailbag, so we have questions that have been emailed to Nick. And of course, we are live. If you'd like to jump on YouTube and ask us questions, you are welcome to as well. Nick, where do we want to start?
Do you want to start with a question?
Yeah, jump in. You've got plenty of emails. You've got plenty to cover. Let me know.
We got a new email. We're going to start with a newbie. Spencer emailed us. He says, Nick and Tom, hi.
Okay.
Love your weekly podcast. Different from anything else on the PW Torch Network. Yes, we agree, Spencer.
We do
agree very, very much. I get you're both more WWE guys, but listening to last week's show, you talked about AEW. We did. My question is related to All In. Tickets go on sale tomorrow in the UK, today, for the Wembley Stadium show. I will be definitely buying. I would be interested to hear what you both think. If the show sells out or close to 80,000 capacity, could this be a game changer for AEW and bring back the momentum that they had for the first couple of years since they launched? They always put on great pay-per-views in terms of match quality, so that combined with the visuals of a packed stadium could be something, especially if they book a big star. WrestleMania looked amazing in SoFi Stadium. I think this could be the same impact for AEW. Thoughts? So, Tom, I'm going to go first with this one.
Go ahead.
I think it does not really matter all that much if they sell out the stadium. And here's why. I think that the AEW is not in the doldrums. They're not in the dumps. I think that people know that they have a really, vibrant fan base. But I think what our criticism was lie in that there is a cap on it.
Yeah.
So, yes, you can get 80,000 people in the stadium, but is that happening at a frequency that would indicate that this could be the norm? No, but here's the thing. WWE wasn't doing regular stadium shows until recently either. And I'm talking about even through their peak years of the Attitude Era, they weren't going through. So I don't know that it's a real game changer. It's a definite help in visual. To me, the best visual AEW ever had was that New York show with it was Daniel Bryan versus who outside was he wrestling?
Was it Minoru Suzuki?
No, that's not the match I'm thinking of. Well, whatever that main event was, the outdoor stadium in New York City where the big tennis match happens. AEW has had some beautiful visuals that would attach to, great shows. It's taking their shows to a next level to create, transcendent stars, which is, I think, the limiting factor. So God bless them if they get close. What they have 35,000 pre-sales today. Yeah. I don't know what the cap is. A lot of times, major shows can burn hot really early on and then trickle off, or that momentum can carry over into the general sales. So I think they're going to get close to 60,000.
I would definitely agree with that. Wembley can host about 90,000 people, and as far as I'm concerned, anything above half, say 50,000, would have been quite an achievement for a big wrestling show, as it were. 50,000 tickets is a lot of tickets, especially for a non-WWE show, would be absolutely huge for that level. Now, if we actually compare and look at the excitement that's already been generated in the first day, 35,000? I think we can comfortably expect at least 70,000 myself.
You think so?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Even so, Wembley, you can consider the hard cam side. You can ignore most of the hard cam side, essentially. You can funnel people from one seating area to another. You can make 70,000 look like a sellout in Wembley. You absolutely can. And you're pretty much guaranteed a good view. So it's possibly once in a lifetime. We can't say for certain how often they're going to be in the UK, but this could sort of provide a little bounce of momentum, because I do feel that AEW started really strong and has had some very good times, but right now they are no longer in that boost they are starting to dip. They are starting to suffer a little bit. With the right people, with the right place, with the right enthusiastic crowd, the UK would provide all of that. I think they can really make something of this. And to be fair, given that it's in August, I expect CM Punk to be back by that time.
Well, they're not in the driver's seat, I think is what you're saying. They're not in the driver's seat of the conversation of wrestling. And I think that that's where the loss is. It was Daniel Bryan versus Kenny Omega that I was thinking of. Sorry for the that I was trying to go back.
He's not outside. Oh, you mean the outside arena? Oh, I thought you meant someone outside the company.
You're just unbelievable right now. I am a guest in your living room, and this is how you treat me. Telling me I'm wrong, not helpful. Please. No one even gave me a beverage on this thing. So
I will never change.
Typical, folks. Don't go to Tom's house. You might as well do your own laundry while you're there. So,
and while we're on that, a lot of people are saying hi to you, so I might as well read out some of those for you. We have a hello from Ed, a hello from Joe, hello from Brad, hello from Ross, hello from Daz, a hello from Carl, a hello from Sean. You remember Sean? Your Nicky Sean?
Oh, he's an OG Nicky.
OG Nicky. Hello from Daniela as well. And Lucha Libre Memes all saying hi.
Do we still have a Stat Queen? Is that still a thing?
Yeah, Megan's still very much here. Don't know if she's here right now, but
just checking. This is interesting, this outdoor show, though. Something to keep an eye. Can I actually pivot, though, to another question that we got?
Yeah,
now,
sure.
Brad sent in a bunch of questions, and I'm going to dip to his third one because this ties into, I think, the international theme of what we're talking. International to me.
Yeah.
Okay. But he was saying, he sent me a couple questions. I'm going to start with his first lead-in was, I hope you're doing great, Nick. I am. I mean, okay. I'm not great. I just wanted to point out a few things that you find interesting. He shares a couple things, which we'll get to. He says, I also wanted to send you a couple quick videos. I like a visual. Looking at the reaction that Austin Theory got in Paris last night, it was incredible. These international crowds are something else. Check these out. The entire arena is screaming A-Town down and his name. And then he says, look forward to being when I'm on with Tom. So here's what I'm going to say. I don't think Austin Theory is over. I don't think he's over internationally. I think WWE is over internationally. And I think that at this point, WWE is a hot product. And I think anything that is going to give an audience a chance for a call and repeat or, any form of just fan interaction was what was happening. I do think there's a general appreciation, right? Like people could have gone silent on him or Baron Corbin, you saw, and some others. But I think they were really buying into the show of it all. And I think it was more of a positive statement on where WWE is than anything else. And that's all I honestly took from those. I didn't take it as any type of momentum on Austin Theory's name. That's just where I'm at with it.
I'm kind of with you on that one, particularly as regards Baron Corbin, because this is probably the moment in which he has the least going on. He's always had some sort of storyline. Since being called up, he was the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal winner. He was working with Dolph Ziggler. He was the sheriff for a while, undermining Kurt Angle. He's been working with JBL. He was Happy Corbin. He was Sad Corbin. He was Bully Corbin. He's always had something going on. This is the only time, really, where he hasn't had anything. Doesn't even have a faction behind him like he did with Ziggler and Rude for a while. Mm-hmm. It's a difficult moment for him, and yet the crowds are really strongly behind him. So I do feel there's an element of that, and I agree with you. With an international crowd, you also get an element of fandom for wrestlers who aren't automatically as over in America as they are elsewhere. The Bayley song, for example, in the UK. The UK absolutely loves Bayley. You don't get that response over in the US.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you.
I want to read a couple of comments that we've had here. Sean's saying, Nick and Tom, you guys are the best, and it's been a while. It's been a month, mate. It's been a whole month. Says, what do you guys feel about the main event? This is as regards Backlash. I feel like the Bloodline has to lose to continue the story of Roman being frustrated with them, which I assume Sean is meaning the Matt Riddle, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus Solo Sikoa and the Usos match. Raw and Smackdown have been used basically to ensure that there looks like a splintering of the Bloodline coming. Do you think Backlash is a jumping off point for that?
Yeah, but I think the jumping off point was actually WrestleMania. I think that you're right. I would have the Usos and the Bloodline, I guess, in the 6-man tag lose. And, it's funny. It's for as patiently built as the entire Bloodline story was over like 2 years. It does feel like we're kind of accelerating a little bit this part of it. There's some pacing just feels a bit off to me. It's too fast and too slow at the same time. And what you don't want is the Usos to lose real momentum, and they have.
Yeah,
they have. But it's like you can feel the crowds turning back again more towards them in a babyface capacity. But it's different. It's not main event babyface. It's mid-card sympathy babyface, and there's something that they have to work out there in terms of where do they want them for the long haul. But I'm going to move on from that and go to the first question, which was what do I think about the main event? I think this is a more interesting main event than the WrestleMania main event was. I am much more interested in, the Ivan Drago versus Rocky element of this match than I was for WrestleMania. I think something about this visually fits for me. And I think it's a real point of strength for Cody to go up against Brock Lesnar. I think it's good for Brock Lesnar to be in with someone who's going to change him up a little bit. I think everything coming at it has been pretty strong. I would have liked a little bit more to it, but it's okay. I would even say that they could maybe get 2 or 3 matches out of this if it's positive experience. Controversially, I don't know that Cody needs to win this. I think that, again, this could be... I don't even know that there needs to be a definitive win in this one. I think that we shouldn't necessarily just look at these as one-offs for Cody. Cody can have multiple long-range blood feuds at the same time. And I think, this heel Brock Lesnar thing can only take so many losses. And yes, one win against Omos does not change his total trajectory. So I am looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a brutal, big fight in Puerto Rico, which is what Puerto Rico wrestling has been known for. And Cody would know that.
I do think the 6-man tag match will be a lot of fun, but I also do feel that the Bloodline has lost serious momentum since WrestleMania. Not just with Roman not being there, but we've sort of had every possible combination of Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus the Usos for months now, and we're now at a point where Sami Zayn is repeating himself, trying to talk to Jey Uso backstage, and it's just not working. We all know it's not working. We've seen it a million times now. We have to move on. The addition of Matt Riddle hasn't really added anything for me. Solo Sikoa is obviously Solo Sikoa, and he's doing a great job at the moment. But Matt Riddle has just been battered pillar to post. It didn't make too much sense to me to have him as involved as he is. As far as I'm concerned, the main event will be Cody Rhodes versus Brock Lesnar. It just feels like the bigger match at this point, especially with no tag team championships on the line. Brock Lesnar and Cody Rhodes, my initial prediction was very much Cody in every possible way, but Cody's now on Raw, and the Bloodline are now on SmackDown, which for me sort of suggests that we are going to keep this one going, because otherwise, what does Cody actually do if not for the fact that he could be going up against Brock Lesnar?
Well, he's going to go up against the person I'm saying is going to win the WWE World Championship. That person who ended up on Raw last night.
Ooh, okay.
You know exactly what I'm saying. It's going to be Finn Balor. Finn Balor's in his future.
Do you see a Judgment Day versus Cody Rhodes feud, or very much a focus on Finn Balor?
Finn Balor can't carry on his own. I think this is a Judgment Day thing. Yeah. Everything about it is, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that is where we're going. As soon as that happened last night, I said, you know what? If I was on Tom's show right now, he better be saying maybe Nick is right. Did you think about me when that happened?
I was not live Friday. Monday night.
When you heard the news.
I did think about you.
Well, because I think this is where I get a little witchy, as you know. I think this is Finn Balor's time. I really do, and I think that moment where he was in the ring the other day with Cody was a test. I really, really do. I
definitely thought about you during the watch along on Friday when I realised that Judgment Day were all going to Raw. Speaking of the draft, Brad Becker is asking, what are your complete thoughts on the draft now that it has been completed? Now, we don't have time to go into too much minutiae, but how do you think the draft played out?
It's fine. I mean, until we see it in action, it's hard to say, because there's already been so much cross-pollination, if you would, with regards to everything. I think some years you've had like some rosters you think are really, really special, and then the chemistry takes a little while to fill out. What really is going to... Let me say this. There's parts of both shows that I think is strong and maintaining its identity. Raw having Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch, and then on SmackDown you have the Bloodline stuff. That's all good stuff. I think SmackDown's women's division is really good. I think Raw's is Becky Lynch and company. I think, and Rhea Ripley certainly, but I still have never seen Rhea Ripley as being like proper women's division. She's been a bit elevated to all of it in the past, bit of time. But it opens the door for Becky versus Rhea, which I think suits you quite well, no, Mr.
Suits me very much so, yes.
Yeah, I think people were telling me they're excited for the Raw men's division. I mean, I don't know. The men's divisions are kind of grab-ems outside of the Bloodline for me. Nothing stands out so exciting.
I'm excited for the possibility of a long-term Gunter versus Cody Rhodes feud. I just don't necessarily think we're going to get it too early. I also think there's a possibility here, an opportunity for Drew McIntyre to go heel. But I've thought that for a while. It's a bit a bit empty on the heel side, to be honest.
It is, yeah.
So I could see a swap for Drew McIntyre there, and he versus Cody could do very well. But having Gunter on Raw for me just adds a lot to it. Damian Priest versus Gunter I'm excited about as an example there.
Are we live on OnlyFans right now?
No, I don't have an OnlyFans account. You've never let me get one.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I just see myself in the box here, and I thought, wow, like these people would go nuts in that setting. Don't you think?
You want to put yourself in a box and put it on OnlyFans for you?
A cage, quite honestly. All right, let's go back to Brad. So his first question before all this nonsense was, first off, based on the way that Triple H spoke about Roman Reigns, when he was revealing that new championship, this will be a champion you will be proud of. This will be a champion who will actually hold the title with honor. This will be a champion who will not run and hide and take weeks off. Would you be the least bit surprised if the show in Saudi Arabia ends with Roman holding the new championship as well? I couldn't think of anything I would like to see more. I also think it would be very exciting and would draw major heat. People would be so PO'd. I just can't see any other reason for why Triple H said these things he did about Roman in that segment, especially in the seconds before he unveiled that title. I feel like a lot of people did not catch that or think of it. So do I think, okay, let me word it this way. I think Roman Reigns leaving with the championship is in the top 5 possibilities for that show.
I agree. I would absolutely love it. I don't necessarily think it's going to happen, but I do feel it's very Triple H.
Yeah, I think, it goes a couple things. First of all, his comments about Roman Reigns were about establishing Roman Reigns further as the big bad of WWE. Yeah. And also just saying, like, that he is so despicable. What is that?
I'm just opening a bottle of lemonade.
Okay. He is so despicable that even I am looking down on it as Triple H. Like, the standard bearer of appropriate. What is that?
That's me pouring out some lemonade.
You need to pour it? You can't get a straw? You're a maniac. An absolute maniac. But I think that, again, that was more about a long-term relationship, I would say, between Roman and Triple H. What is that?
That's me closing some lemonade.
Yeah, real pleasant. It's more about a long-term relationship with Roman and Triple H for something down the line. That's what this was about.
It did feel like a little bit of a throwback to the feud that they did have in around WrestleMania 32. That element, and even Roman's guilty of this. For the build-up to WrestleMania 34 against Brock Lesnar, he was always attacking the part-timer. Then you had John Cena and, was it The Rock, attacking the part-timer. Then it was Roman Reigns and John Cena, and they were attacking the part-timer. And yet here we are, and now Roman's a part-timer, and Seth's attacking him, and Triple H is attacking him. It does feel like Roman Reigns is in that position now where he is the final boss, he is the big bad, he is the villain of the franchise. And I couldn't be happier for him. I would love to see him hold an extra championship, but not for long, because it does kind of make the whole thing pointless.
Yeah. All right. Next question. Because, here's Brad is a Nicky.
So I keep hearing.
He's a Nicky. And he's also, what's one thing you know about me, Tom? What am I a little bit?
Witchy?
Oh, well, Brad's a little witchy. Because his next question was, another thing, I'd really think you are going to love Grayson Waller if he makes the main roster. Surprise, he did.
He did.
Okay. He is your type of performer. He's talking about me. He's your type of performer and someone I could see becoming one of your instant favorites. He has an incredible personality, is funny, has a ton of charisma, and is great in the ring as well. He really knows how to make storylines interesting. And I don't know if you've seen much of him before, but I promise you are going to love him, no question about it. Well, let me tell you, Brad, I don't love him, I enjoy him. So I think that there is, when you are someone like him who does have such a personality at this stage in his career, it's, you get a lot of screen time, a lot of performance time. He's green at that. And that doesn't mean he's bad at it. It just means you can see when he's shifting between, performances. There's moments where I notice he goes a little blank or he's not quite as
present,
in the moment. I feel like he is too busy playing up to a character. It's not really embodied in him yet. It's going to get there, though. I mean, we've seen others like Cameron Grimes and others that, over time it just becomes a little bit more natural. And I do think that's where Grayson Waller is. I think he's, you're right. He's the most interesting character of NXT, I think, to go up to the main roster. And I think that this is one of the, I would say, pluses of how NXT's a little bit of their shift in approach to go from the traditional great in-ring wrestling to having a little bit more character-based things, where someone like Waller would be more prepped for a moment on the main roster than some of the others have been in the past. And I think it's going to translate well. I think he's actually probably better served for the main roster to be, in that crash course, like, here, good luck, kid moment. And I think he'll find his way pretty fast. How about you?
His improvement over the last year has been a joy to watch, and he actually does prove that the NXT 2.0 model was not necessarily a bad thing. I know a lot of people like to hate on the concept, but NXT was not working in the previous incarnation. It wasn't. People were being called up to the main roster and they were dying out there. It was bad. The crowds were not responding at all. They didn't have established characters. They didn't have established personalities. Then you go to 2.0 and someone like Grayson Waller rockets to the very top of the card in a very brief amount of time. And he stays there. And people are talking about this guy who've never even heard of him. But you start to see things pop up because of the character, because of the personality. I'm excited to see what it can do. I don't think he's going to set the world on fire. I don't think they're going to push him that hard and put that much pressure on him to start with. But much like LA Knight, he'll be able to get a connection with fans. He'll be able to talk himself up. And before you know it, fans will start getting behind this guy. And then the company will as well.
I have a question for the folks watching right now. Tom, you know what? Because this is in real-time feedback that we never usually get. Who would they like to see join our show for a special sometime?
Ooh.
Anyone from PW Torch? Anyone realistic? Who should we be getting?
I
know we want Rosie. Rosie's not coming. We want Kelly. Kelly's not. We tried getting Faye. Faye's people ignored us, as you know.
I will start going through the comments. And anyone
I did reach out to Faye. You know this, right?
I'm fully aware of that. Fully aware.
If anybody has a connection to Queen Faye Resnick,
I will catch up on the chat, and that will help us to get to a point where we can see how people are answering as regards guests. Zayn and Ken both say hello as well. Daniela says Alba and Isla versus Katana and Kaden tonight for the NXT Women's Tag Titles. Both women's teams have been called up. Daniela doesn't believe that makes much sense. What do you think is likely from that?
I don't think much. I don't think anything happens either way. I think, especially with the women's tag team matches, I think they're going to go between brands for the time being until they figure it out.
I actually disagree, primarily because I think the NXT tag titles are coming up to SmackDown. On Raw, they did mention that the women's tag team championships, currently held by Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez,
You're right about
will be defended on Raw. So I think essentially they just rebrand them and we have a Raw version and a SmackDown version.
Oh, no, I can't handle it. I literally cannot handle that.
Aww.
Nonsense.
Horsey says, good evening, Tom and Nick. Hope you're both well. Sean is saying, I feel like Sikoa is wrestling way too much. I wish they would have kept his mystique more. Do you agree with that?
Yes and no. I see what you mean, but I think he actually has a lot of growing to do still, and I think you get that by wrestling more.
I agree completely. I do feel that the mystique is a good thing to have. I remember when Shinsuke Nakamura first came up, and he went from being the special attraction on NXT to wrestling every single week. He stopped feeling special very quickly, even to a point where winning the Royal Rumble, it wasn't the most celebrated moment of the night, and it really felt like it should be. Solo Sikoa, however, has huge upside, is extremely impressive, and I do believe he's been worth every moment so far. It's just a case of how quickly you start to run through them. Razar is happy that Sami and Kevin are split from the Usos and the Bloodline. It was getting so repetitive. I agree on that one. Spider Boss says, question for Nick. Do you think Zelina Vega has a chance against Rhea Ripley?
Nope.
Fair enough.
I just don't even... there's nothing really appealing about this match to me. Like, I get it that it's a great hometown kind of thing, and Zelina's very likable and all, but like I just said before, Tom, it's a failure that this is Rhea's first offense. And it is. And it is.
Sean says, I'm super pumped about a Bianca-Charlotte feud, but Nick, Charlotte has to be the heel.
Yeah, I agree, Sean. That's like saying, like, the sky has to be blue for it to be a nice day at the beach. Like, yeah, of course. It's like, but like, here's the thing, like, it's tough because, Charlotte's greeted after these extended breaks at like a star, and that gives that babyface pop that then alters it. I think the initial approach to Charlotte, which we end up in this space often. I think Belair versus Charlotte is the great feud waiting to happen. Yeah. But I've said this to you, Tom. I still, for WrestleMania 40, hope that night 1 of WrestleMania, or whenever it is, night 2, who cares, is main evented by Becky Lynch versus Charlotte Flair. That's the one-on-one match of WrestleMania as a women's main event that, quite frankly, deserves it. And I'm going to say this: I do not want to go another year without the women's match closing a WrestleMania. I think I still think a failure of this year's card.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And I stand by it. I agree.
I stand by it. I think this is ridiculous.
I agree. We've got 2 Royal Rumbles. We have 2 side in these divisions, and honestly, the women are doing such great work right now. You've got 2 nights, you might as well.
Yeah, I mean, please, the Sami moment of celebration, I mean, that could have happened anywhere earlier in the card. I don't care what anyone thinks.
Hogan says, Roman being peeved at his 1,000th day is being upstaged by a new world championship seems entirely on brand for the character, and that I wholeheartedly agree with. Certainly that's more than enough reason for me for him to kick off and start challenging for the extra championship as well. Razar actually follows up on that, says, what if Roman wins a new title and loses it to Cody at SummerSlam instead? And that is certainly an opportunity that they could take. But honestly, with Cody and Roman being separated, it feels to me like they're not going to finish this story. Do you think there's more to come from Roman versus Cody?
Yeah, WrestleMania 40. Get ready.
Just get ready.
No, I mean, like, that's what it is. Everything's going to be a getting ready for that. They have to be very careful about the Cody Rhodes in the world with that WWE. Well, I don't even know. Sometimes they're calling it WWE World Championship. Other times they're just calling it the World Championship. Yeah. You don't want him to get it and it just, be the consolation championship. And, that's a sticky one. It really, really is. It's like, I said this before, you break up with like the really hot person and then you start dating the next person. Do you like tell that person? Like, I'm sorry. Like, if I could, I would have gone with that one. Like, when I close my eyes when I'm with you to think of that one. Like, is that what you say?
Oh, wow. That got harsh quick.
Well, Tom, people are closing their eyes with you. I don't know how to tell you that.
Oh, lovely. Trekopedia says, hi, Tom and Nick. My question is, why did they announce an NXT Women's Tag Title match for 2 teams being called up? Do you think they'll add more teams to the match tonight to win those titles? Now,
so who is this?
This is about the NXT Tag Team.
No, I know. Who said it?
Trekopedia.
Okay, Trekopedia. Well, here is the thing. I actually don't think these are being booked messily. This isn't like the days, I don't think, of the drafts when it was just like all chaos breaks loose. I think that this plays into the anything could happen in the draft kind of thing. I think there is a plan, whatever that is. Tom, you think that the titles might be going up? I don't think necessarily that's going to happen. But I do think that it adds that level of drama and intrigue. And I think that that is stuff that's missing in WWE right now. There's that unexpected kind of stuff. So I think that's what they're going with.
I think that's especially true at Backlash when you look at the Women's Championship matches. I definitely don't see Zelina Vega having a chance against Rhea Ripley. And unfortunately, I don't see Io Sky having a chance against Bianca Belair either.
I totally disagree with you on that one.
Ooh, okay. We'll talk about that a little bit later.
I totally disagree.
Spider-Boss says, question for Nick, what do you think about Cora Jade from NXT?
Don't know much about her. Send me a clip.
Fair enough. Do you want to give everyone your Twitter now so they can send clips to you?
At Nicholas Barbati, NicholasBarbati.
Thank you, Nick. Christoph says, too tired to listen to the whole show now, but had to say hi to my favourite team. I've been listening since the first NTIA episode on Pro Wrestling Torch. He's a fairly regular here and drops in, so I know he's been here for a while. Best wishes from Germany to both of you guys.
Wow, that was great. That was mid-January 2021?
2021, yep. January 2021.
Wow, we've been on a long... I was listening to a thing, Tom, the other day. They said most podcasts cancel after 7 episodes.
We broke the 100 a long time ago.
Yeah, we're on like 130 or something.
And that's especially impressive considering, we hate each other. I don't understand why we've been doing it even for 1 episode.
Well, you just make it easy for me to show up. Like, I'm a big convenience kind of thing.
You're a big convenience guy. Well, it's inconvenient for me because I have to look at you all the time.
Yeah, I know. Looking at these teeth, real problematic.
We have a few people making suggestions. Zayn says you should get Wrestling Days on your show. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Wrestling Days.
No. I don't watch or read anything. You know this about me, Tom.
Very true. Sean says, I'm the first choice, but I'll go with Wade himself, or, you can love this one, you can love it,
Zach Haydorn.
Zach Haydorn.
Zach Haydorn has me banned from the after SmackDown shows. So I don't think he would want to be on. What?
How did you get banned?
Well, because I went on that honesty spree.
See, you never do that.
So notice that he and I aren't on together anymore. Just ask some questions. No, I'm only kidding. Zach and I are great. I actually really love being on with Zach. I think Zach is, and seriously, Zach and I are good, just for the record, because I know Wade gets upset with that kind of stuff. Zach is great. I don't do a lot of those post shows anymore, Tom, because I work all day and come home. I got to eat. I want to hang out with my friends. I like watching SmackDown in the morning, as you know.
Yeah.
So that's my preference. I'm sorry.
Spider-Boss says, with Ronda on Raw, Nick, do you think WWE still want Becky versus Ronda?
No, but how? Oh, that was that bad. I'm glad that question came up. That was a really bad moment when they. First of all, they got who was saying it? Who was it? Eric Bischoff.
Yeah.
Couldn't say Shayna's name. Got Ronda's name tongue-tied. Like, this is Ronda Rousey. I would have preferred, if I was Ronda Rousey, don't even draft me at all. But to be drafted that low, yikes.
Not a good position, not a good spot, and she's not the only one who was way down when it comes to the actual draft. Trekipedia suggests Casey is Raw, another one I'm not familiar with, so I'll be sure to check them out. Ray says, I'd like to see on your show YouTuber Denise Salcedo. Are you familiar with Denise Salcedo? Denise Salcedo is already on this YouTube channel. She was in a debate that took place, I believe it was about Retribution way back when, along with Rick Ucchino, Warren Hayes, and myself. So you may want to check that out, Ray.
Wow, cool.
What questions have you got then, while we get a few more options
I have one from Nick Bray, who's a proud Nikki's Club member. Not only does he declare himself that, but I do as well. Love, Nick, all that you do on the torch. Thank you. Big fan from over here in the UK. The UK people love me.
They do.
They love me, and I got to get over there. I've always said, Tom, we need to do a live in-person get-together with these things. I think it's so... Can I tell you this? Because I'm not a podcaster. I don't do any of this stuff. I do this with you and Wade. But I think it's so weird that it doesn't translate to an in-person greeting. Like, that to me is just... I don't understand the virtual world. I am like much more of an in-person hugger connection. Okay.
I would love it if we did a show like that where we just booked out a small room somewhere with a bunch of people.
In New York City.
Yeah, something like that. And just ask questions of the audience. Give us what you got. We'll see what we got.
Yeah. Okay, question. I went to a WWE live event earlier this week and only really noticed what a great job the referees do. I was close enough to them to hear that they were telling wrestlers to break the holds, etc., to the same standard they do on TV, but to see it live really adds to the experience. Do you have a favorite all-time referee? How do you think the standard of refereeing stacks up to today with years past? Would be interested in your thoughts. Tom, I'm going to toss it to you while I do some Googling.
You're going to Google some referees, are we?
Well, no, because I do have a favorite referee, but I want to make sure I get it right. Is it Bill Mercer from WCCW?
Not a name I'm familiar with, to be completely honest. Tony Kimmel actually was my favorite referee.
Bill Mercer was the commentator, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Tony Kimmel was my favorite growing up for the Attitude Era and the Impact. I always like it when someone counts the two by doing the devil horns. For some reason, I like that. I was a big fan of Earl Hebner growing up, but I think I was supposed to. It was one of those where he definitely appealed to people who hated Triple H. And even though I love Triple H, I like to be swept along in the story a little bit.
This was Earl Hebner, you said?
Earl Hebner, yes. So there were definitely quite a few that were genuinely entertaining on TV. Yeah, Lil Nate every now and then just popping up, still refereeing now, of course. And I don't know, for me, I've never been one to really focus too much on referees because I think a good referee does fade into the background a little bit. But the more aware of the wrestling world you become, the more respect you have for referees in general, and so it should be.
Not Bill Alfonso?
Again, no, I have no idea what that is.
Oh, really? From ECW?
Nope, no idea.
Wow, okay. Well, you said, Charles Robinson, one of my all-times, and then Tim White has been my personal favorite. Earl Hebner, okay. I'm just going to say this because, I'm a little bit of a gossiper, but I always, I keep it straightforward.
Okay.
I loved, by the way, my favorite, Earl Hebner was part of one of my favorite wrestling moments that became it was horrible when Chris Jericho had to relinquish the title after he just beat Triple H, and then Triple H pressured him. But, it's like, don't meet your heroes type thing. So I met Earl Hebner at a local convention. I'm in New Jersey, and we are known for our wrestling conventions. And it just didn't, I guess, got an unpleasant vibe from him. And, that's why I don't want to go to those conventions. I've always said to you, Tom, I don't want to meet wrestlers. I have no interest in that kind of stuff because they just become a little bit humanized. He did nothing wrong, but the mystique was gone, if that makes sense. I don't know. He literally did nothing wrong. He was very pleasant with those pictures, but it's just something about that whole experience. I didn't like the convention, didn't like the people in it. Everything felt like a money grab, which is more about the experience than the actual people, let me just say. But Tim White, I don't have that veneer removed from. He was just such a pleasant part of the history, and I think he exists in a different level of iconography and mythology due to the Andre the Giant connection, and Charles Robinson the same kind of way with Ric Flair. I just think they're now. Let's talk about today, because that's also part of the question. I think referees are just very impressive today. I love seeing the female referees. I like seeing the diversity in the ring. I think there is nothing that stands out to me as a problematic referee right now. There are times. I actually was at a it's funny that you asked it, because I was at the New Japan show at the ECW arena. And it's funny because there was a referee there that someone in the audience said, that referee's in the way. He actually predicted it. You could, because the room is so small, you can hear when people talk. Yeah. And someone in the audience said, that referee's getting in the way. I was like, please. And I thought he meant in the way of his view. A minute later, a wrestler ran into the referee, and not in a spot. And I thought, wow, that was a good eye. But the referee looked a little confused in the whole kind of thing. So, but I got a question speaking about that experience, because I went to New Japan. I asked people to help me. I still, for the life of me, I'm trying to watch old ECW because I'm obsessed with now understanding that arena. Somebody needs to tell me with that arena how that used to be situated. I'm not. I will say this every week because it's driving me nuts, people. How was that room situated? I'll do a call with you. I'll go with you to 2300 Arena and walk through. Someone needs to show it to me and talk to me about it. And I know people of influence listen to this show, for the record.
So, said quite a lot there. I'm going to go back to the conventions part because I have something to mention on that one. I have no idea about the arena you're talking about. Conventions, I feel, unfortunately, just don't quite live up to expectations. Everyone's in a bit of a rush. Everyone's trying to make a little bit of money. And it's one of those where if someone was still successful, they probably wouldn't have time to be there. You look at, for example, Kevin Nash has been on the circuit for conventions for a long time. You don't see Roman Reigns going around the conventions.
No.
Shawn Michaels pulled out of For the Love of Wrestling in Liverpool in the UK quite recently because there's just too much going on. And it's just something to pay attention to and really be aware of, I feel.
That's me and Ricky Steamboat at the convention. I met him at one, and I met Corey Graves at the.
What didn't quite happen there was that we saw you in the shop. We didn't quite see Ricky the Dragon Steamboat.
He was there. But do you want to see it again?
Yes, I do. But
really?
slightly more to the. Keep going. There we are.
It's on my screen.
There, spot on. There we are.
Don't we look like sisters?
We have plenty more questions coming in from the chat. Bailey is asking, could either of you see a future after Roman goes to part-time status or Hollywood? I'd argue he's part-time status already, personally, where Solo Sikoa could lead the Bloodline. Personally, because of the character that he's playing, particularly the stoic character, I don't, but I do think he could still very much be a heavy in another faction. For example, a Hurt Business with an MVP with him. What do you say?
No, he's not a leader.
Fair enough. Christoph says, do you think Gargano will reunite the Way, or is it time for DIY to return and stir up the main roster's tag team scene? Which faction would you prefer, or tag team, would you prefer to see Johnny Gargano in?
DIY. I have no interest in the Way.
Trekipedia also recommends NYC Demon Diva, who I believe is working for Wrestling Inc. Correct me if I'm wrong there.
This all sounds very demonic.
I mean, that's literally in the name.
Well, I'm just stating it back. I have no interest in that.
Hogan says, I think I know where Tom stands, but where does Nick stand on the one world champion versus two world champion debate for both the men's and women's world titles?
One world champion for both.
You've mentioned this in the past, and I do like to hear you reiterate it every now and then.
I hate it. I think it's reductive, and I think it's okay to have, like, listen, people weren't screaming when Hulk Hogan was world champion. Well, let me back that up. There's one real game in town, right, in WWE right now. Sorry. So maybe, I don't know when Hulk Hogan had that big, long reign, if, what the tone of being alive was, that, like, people viewed him versus Flair, or him versus Dusty, whatever the breakdown, whoever had the championship at any given moment. But this is like the same company. Now, try as you might to create a separation, it's still the same company. So for me, it's like there should be one world champion, and it's reductive of Roman's reign, to not. And they did a good job of making this 1,000-day reign thing with Reigns. Like, you forget that for the vast majority of it, that one half of that championship was not on him. It was on somebody else. But, I just wish they'd carried it over the finish line. Like, I heard what you said about the question about that it plays into the Roman Reigns character. But, yeah, ish and no. That's where I'm at with it. Like, it was an unnecessary error, I really believe. I don't think it serves anybody well. And with the women, again, it's reductive for how shallow those divisions can get at times. One women's champion, whether it be Becky or Charlotte or Bianca, I mean, they don't need to follow that same mold where they just hold it for years at this point. Like, I just think and Bianca needs to lose that championship to Io Sky. I think she might.
Now, initially I didn't agree with you on this, but the longer the championship reigns have gone, the more I started to think having one world champion and shorter reigns is probably the right way to do it, I've got to say.
Yeah.
Spider Boss is saying, question for Nick, do you think Bayley could be a champion again on SmackDown?
Oh, yeah. Bayley can be a champion anytime she wants, or anytime they want her to be. So that's the good news with Bayley. She's kind of in the Ric Flair circa, 1996 role, which is, she feels a little past it all, but it's not. She can be tagged in whenever she needs to, and she's still Bayley. She's still someone who is so serviceable at the highest level. So, yeah, no, Becky's days as champion are not done at all. Now, it's been a unique ride, but it's been a consistently good ride, right? So I think that's just where she is. She's not one of those, if she's not holding the championship, she's in a bad way. She's a bit, honestly, higher than it all at this point.
Now, I just want to clarify, because I heard you say Becky there. The question was Bayley.
I said I was talking about Bayley.
Cool. I just want to clarify that.
Yeah. I don't feel that way about Becky. I think Becky's not the same character that she was, and I don't think she's nearly as good.
Spider-Boss says, I'd love to see you on the show with Andrew Zarian. Are you familiar with Andrew Zarian?
Never heard of him.
Works for the Wrestling Observer.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, podcast host there, does live shows, share some news.
Cool. Well, someone reach out to these people.
Yeah, he's dropped into this chat before.
Who is that? Who are those two people that called us out?
I mean, I get called out by a lot of people.
No, from PW Torch. Remember they wanted us to tag team fight them or something?
Well,
they're not on Twitter?
As much as I want to tag team someone with you, that's not exactly the situation I thought it would be happening in.
Definitely not.
Sean says, Nick from Battleborough called the other day, our other Nicky, and it was good to hear him.
Well, no, someone, I need more. Where is he? What's been happening?
Talk to Sean. Talk to your Nickies.
No, you're talking to him right now. I'm talking to him. Hi, Sean. Where is he? What was happening?
Sean follows up by saying Earl Hebner was the best.
Yeah, he was. He was. No, he was the best. He was the best. He's not. I think the question was my favorite.
Noob says, hello, Nick and Tom. How are you doing? I can say for myself I'm doing well. Nick, how are you?
Can we move on?
Spider-Boss says, question for Tom. Do you think Dominic Mysterio imitates Eddie Guerrero too much on TV? Now, I'm going to ask this for both of us, but no, not in any way, shape or form. In fact, at WrestleMania, it is Rey Mysterio who imitated Eddie Guerrero, and it was Dominic Mysterio. He basically cast off that shell and became his own man for me, and personally, I much prefer Dominic's presentation than I did Rey's at WrestleMania.
What about those Guerreros lately? Oh, you got Chavo, who's like,
ooh.
I never saw someone try to dial back on a lie. I mean, that was just No. Just own it and say you're sorry.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Just put your hand up and say, yeah, sorry.
And then you got Vicky, and I loved me some Vicky, but whoa. And then the kids, this was like, yikes.
Razar says, the way Ronda's stock has fallen off is crazy, and WWE's done no favours the way they book her. She's arguably the most recognisable person in WWE, and they've completely fumbled her. Do you agree with that?
Yes and no. I mean, I think it's a really paired problem here. I think everyone had a part in this, and I think I think even the audience too. Everyone was at a different level of where Ronda should be. The audience seemed to want Ronda to be simultaneously humbled a bit into being more normal, but then when she was more normal, honestly, the women's division didn't lend itself to her being in that role. Ronda, I think, wanted to be seen in a more elevated spot, but in a place that people were resenting her positioning. And, WWE's management, I think, was somewhere in between. And I think that lack of clarity and lack of uniformed agreement as to, which path to go really led us to be the moment that we're in right now. And you know who I actually blame for a big portion of it is Shayna Baszler. And not, blame personally, but because she never found who she was, honestly, it defined down everything around her. And I just think it's a shame. I think Shayna and Ronda should really use this as an opportunity to hit pause, go back, figure it all out, and then, come back. The opportunity is so there for them to be this real badass tag team that just comes in there and does great work. And that WrestleMania thing, honestly, they could have both left and never come back after that moment, and it would have just been fitting because that's how bad it was. And I know there was injuries, don't get me wrong, but it just fits too much into where people were with them at the time. Do you make sense?
It does make sense. The idea that they're entitled, that they don't work hard for anything, and then you go and do that, it really does sort of prove a lot of prejudice right. I'm going to read out some favourite referees, and then we'll go back to your list of questions. Zane says...
I'm done. I have no more questions.
Fantastic. Zane says, Nick Patrick was my favourite referee.
Oh, yeah, but he's very tall. That was my only criticism of him.
Your criticism was that he was tall?
No, because he was taller than the wrestlers a lot of times. And so when we're talking about referees that fade in the background, I did love my favorite Nick Patrick moment was long after the WCW heel Nick Patrick thing when he came to WWF, and there was that SummerSlam match between Austin versus Kurt Angle, which is my favorite Steve Austin match ever. And Nick Patrick came in and did the 1-2 and then called for almost went to the 1-2. He looked like he was going to do it, and then was called for the bell for the disqualification. It was amazing.
Daniela says John Cone, Charles Robinson were good. Sean suggests Jessica Carr right now, who she's really started to make an impact and really started to make the niche her own in the referee position. Daz Reynolds says Brian Hebner was a good ref, and Randy Anderson from WCW. Ken says Impact Wrestling's Sean Sewell, not someone I'm personally familiar with. Ray UK suggests AEW's Aubrey Edwards, who I believe largely gets the main event role in AEW. And we do have some questions about favourite commentator. Now, Daz and Ray have both asked this question. So, let's talk favourite commentator. I'm going to go straight in and say I really like the pairing of Michael Cole and Corey Graves. What's your opinion on this one, Nick?
I mean, you're asking me right now or ever?
Ever.
Oh, I mean, like I said, Bill Mercer earlier from WCW, I got that tongue-tied there, but I think was fantastic. Bobby Heenan, my all-time favorite. I loved, obviously I grew up in that era with Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon, which, looking back on it, you could say, oh, they weren't a great team. They were a great team. Yeah. I mean, come on. Yeah. I am of the ilk, get the pitchforks ready. It's my line. I think Michael Cole is a better commentator of this generation than Jim Ross is. Sorry, Jim Ross had higher highs than Michael Cole, but Michael Cole, for years of service, is just outrageously good, I think. And I just wish he would get some respect on his name, really. Corey Graves is good. You really liked Pat McAfee when he was dialed in. I thought he went with that enthusiasm when it was where it needed to be, right in a sweet spot. Was a very high, and I like vintage Vince McMahon and vintage Eric Bischoff, quite frankly. There's something about them knowing where the storyline was going that really, I think, drove things in a good direction. Yeah, that's where I'm at. You heard me go on this rant recently. I'm not necessarily, I don't get hung up on great announcers. I get hung up on bad announcers. So, for example, I think Titus O'Neil at WrestleMania really went a long way to being a near fatal flaw to that triple threat Intercontinental Championship match. I think Randy Savage, I could never listen to on commentary, too grating. Yeah, that kind of stuff. I remember when Matt Stryker nearly ruined the Shawn Michaels retirement match by just not shutting the hell up, like that kind of stuff.
I get what you're saying. Luke S. suggests Bobby Heenan as well, who I know you've mentioned there too.
Yeah, the greatest. And Paul Heyman, by the way, let me say this, when he came back in 2001 for that stretch between, I think it was February all the way through November, that was my favorite team. Him versus and Jim Ross. Well, I started to say him versus Jim Ross because they were much more combative than we had ever seen, but they were my favorite team ever.
I did really enjoy that period of time. I think I was just at the right age for it as well, where just people
cutting edge
going after each other on commentary was a lot of fun.
Joey Styles, phenomenal too, underrated.
Ken suggests Tom Hannifan, aka Tom Phillips, Impact Wrestling. Trekipedia has suggested as regards guest Greg Morgan on YouTube as good mic work commentaries. I am aware of Greg Morgan. We've spoken a little bit in the past. And certainly I think that's a good option as well.
Taz was good. Taz and Michael Cole were phenomenal.
True, very true. They had a natural chemistry as well. Spider Boss is asking, Nick, do you think Bayley needs to get more recognition from fans? I'm starting to think Spider Boss might have a favourite.
Well, I think Bayley does get a lot. Why is that in my brain that I'm getting that flipped?
That's my fault.
Bayley does get, I think, really solid recognition from the fans. I don't think she doesn't. Am I wrong on that?
I don't think you're wrong at all. Sean says, as regards Nick from Battlesboro, he's been watching still, just doesn't feel like calling in.
Oh, well, and that is fair. Neither do I. And neither do I.
We're getting some love in the chat. Ken Thompson saying Nick and Tom is the best and number one, which is always lovely to see.
Well, I would love to see us go up the charts.
You want to go up the charts?
Why are we not up the charts?
Well, the Daily Cast is on the podcast charts. So technically we are.
Can you look into this? You're the one with the expert with the charts.
I have looked into it. We've had this discussion before.
Oh, I knew someone did.
Sean says, to be fair, Nick, Charlotte fought Rhea and Becky in a 6-woman tag with Lita and Trish, put Becky in a better feud, and she's still the best.
But I don't even know what was said. Those were words right there. Trish and Lita and what else? I mean, there's nothing best about anything in that sentence.
Where have I from here? Daz Reynolds was a fan of Tony and Jesse Ventura. Razar says the Raw commentary team currently is not good. They could use a third person, in my opinion. Titus O'Neil at WrestleMania did great on commentary. Maybe add him. We've lost you slightly there, Nick. Hopefully we're able to fix that connection. Nicholas, can you hear me? I think, guys, we've kind of lost him. I want to say a thank you to Casey Is Raw. I can see that you've dropped in. Appreciate the subscription. Says my friend Trekipedia told me to check you guys out. Welcome to the show and apologies for the technical issues that have been incurred here. But ultimately, I think as we get closer to the hour, we may need to start looking at wrapping that up because we have lost Nick and this is kind of awkward with his face being there and just sort of outside of our realms of help. Lovely to meet you, Casey. I'll be sure to check your work out after this as well, and we can see about making something happen. But in the meantime, with the technical issues that we're having, I'm going to say a big thank you to everyone who's joined us. We did actually run out of questions as we ran down there. So I'm just going to wrap us up and say a massive thank you to everyone who has been watching and listening. I've been Tom Collihew, representing Nick and Tom's Intercontinental Adventure. I'd say goodbye for Nick as well, but unfortunately he has been forced to drop off. But I'll just say a massive thank you, and we'll see you all for the next one as well. Thank you and goodbye.